Hey, everybody. Ben Evans here, and I am excited to be talking with you today about the role that energy efficiency can play, not only in helping us rebuild the economy and create jobs, but also in tackling the climate crisis. People forget that energy efficiency is by far the largest employer in the clean energy sector with more than 2 million jobs, most of them in construction and manufacturing. And it's also the single most effective solution we have for climate change. And the IEA predicts that energy efficiency alone could account for nearly half of the carbon emissions needed to meet the goals of the Paris Climate Accord. The beauty of energy efficiency is it does all of that while reducing costs for businesses and manufacturers to make them more productive and competitive, and reducing costs for households. And that's particularly important for lower income households who spend an outsized share of their income on energy bills. So there's so much more that we can be doing to advance efficiency, expanding tax incentives and investments in public building retrofits and weatherizing homes. And I look forward to talking to you about that more today. Thank you.
I'm Jeff Wolf. By combining the three problems of electric vehicle charging station deployment, the need for increased utility grid resiliency, and increased penetration of distributed energy, we can help solve them all. Because of their large power draws, the installation of EV charging systems creates very large stresses on the utility grid. This makes finding sites for charging stations difficult and expensive, and it can take over a year to get the utility connected. Locating battery energy storage at EV charging stations can significantly reduce grid stress while also reducing the cost and time for EV charging station installation, accelerating deployment. Batteries at charging stations also provide resilient charging necessary for evacuations and for first responders. Batteries at charging stations increase overall grid resilience and make it easier to integrate grid edge renewables. By combining stationary storage and bidirectional EV charging, affordable resilience hubs can be created. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jason Burwen. Energy storage is critical on the path to a clean energy economy. And so a number of actions under both existing authorities and new legislation can drive storage to sustain higher shares of renewables, electrify the economy, and drive resilience to climate disruptions. First, establish market designs that value and compensate flexibility through FERC rulemakings and qualifying facility eligibility. Second, promote a domestic storage supply chain and innovation, creating demand-driven growth with investment tax credits for storage, credits and grants for manufacturing facilities of storage, and reorienting DOE investments to demonstrations. Third, promote equitable electric system resilience with storage, targeting federal grants for resilience investments, particularly in low-income communities. And fourth, support equity and environmental justice in storage deployments, establishing storage and hybrids as the best available control technology, and creating a framework to transition fossil units, especially in environmental justice communities. Thank you.
I'm Caitlin Smith. In order to fully utilize the abundant clean energy resources that we have in the United States, we need to develop a bold transmission plan to access those. Clean energy resources tend to be in rural areas away from load centers. This means they're often lacking adequate transmission to get them to load, and often these areas are the same ones that would benefit job-wise and economically from having transmission projects built to them. In Texas, we have the Competitive Renewable Energy Zone, or CREZ lines. These lines were exactly developed to take clean energy resources from rural areas to load centers. These lines initially found success in relieving congestion, getting the clean energy more to load, and improving the overall grid reliability and price signaling. For a national plan, we would want to model after the success of that design, but to find a federal source of funding instead of ratepayer funding. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Hi, I'm Arthur Haubenstock, and I appreciate this opportunity to talk about the paper Rob Gramlich, Alex McDonough, and I contributed on an American supergrid and super distribution systems. Like so much of our nation's infrastructure, our electric transmission and distribution systems are antiquated and in disrepair. They were never designed to meet the needs of a clean, renewables-based energy system. To unlock our incredible clean energy potential, we need the electric equivalent of the national superhighway system that led to the economic prosperity of the 1950s and 1960s. That can unleash large quantities of low-cost, reliable, and dependable clean power. We also need smart electric distribution systems that can leverage customer investments in clean power technologies to create greater local reliability and resilience and to further lower costs. We recommend several specific actions that can make supergrids and super distribution systems a reality in the near term. I'm looking forward to the discussion, and thanks again for the opportunity.
The U.S. needs a resilient energy system that can quickly respond to and recover from major events to keep the power flowing to American homes and businesses. Our proposal focuses on 4 critical areas: creating a smarter grid that will improve resilience while supporting our goals of increased reliability and reduced carbon emissions; a robust national effort to get ahead of increasingly sophisticated cyber attacks that utilities face daily; microgrids that can provide power where it's needed most when the grid goes down; and efficient, responsive buildings that will help us do more with less energy. Our paper proposes a grant program that would fund transformational investments in all 4 areas, a data hub that would foster a better understanding of energy threats, responses, and best practices, and finally, a presidential award to raise awareness and encourage ambitious action. These investments would create jobs, protect first responders and at-risk communities, all while supporting our economic recovery and national security.
I'm Dan Kammen. The offshore wind industry is mature and the largest untapped source of clean energy. With a path to 80,000 jobs by 2025, they would play a pivotal role in our 2035 clean energy target. The industry has the potential for over 200,000 megawatts by 2050. Day one, the president could issue an executive order permitting 5,000 megawatts by 2025, 30,000 megawatts by 2030. That would be enough to power 11 million homes. There would be an immediate return of $2 billion in leases to the federal government and $17 billion injected to the economy by 2025. The new Secretary of the Interior could issue an order coordinating activities across government agencies, coordinating the process of environmental review and siting approval, and of construction and operation permits. There would be immediate benefits to frontline communities in terms of jobs and air quality, as well as engagement with EPA, NOAA, and fisheries agencies.
Hi, I'm Pierson Stoecklein. For more than a decade, federal tax incentives have been a primary driver for the deployment of clean energy technologies, including wind and solar, which now represent nearly 10% of U.S. electric power generation. Many existing clean energy tax credits are set to expire or phase down substantially by the end of 2021, however, and with the economy already weakened by the COVID crisis, last-minute extension or premature expiration will result in significant manufacturer and developer job losses, investor uncertainty, and threaten critical clean energy objectives. Rather than perpetuating the existing patchwork approach to energy tax policy, which unnecessarily picks winners and losers and stifles innovation, the Biden administration should work with Congress to create a single, technology-neutral, carbon performance-based Clean Energy Investment Credit, or CEIC. As envisioned, the CEIC would be made accessible to early-stage companies and technologies via direct pay, refundability, and/or transferability. These same tools could be used without congressional action when tax equity markets contract, and the CEIC would provide incentive adders to projects that serve disadvantaged communities, are comprised of first-of-a-kind or emerging technology, directly replace existing fossil generation capacity, meet certain wage and labor standards, or satisfy minimum domestic content requirements. Thank you.
Hi, this is Dan Reicher on a Federal Clean Energy Deployment Administration, or CEDA. There are 2 steps we are proposing to accelerate investment in U.S. energy projects deploying clean energy technologies. First, the Biden-Harris administration should reactivate the 4 existing DOE loan programs in clean energy, advanced vehicles, transmission lines, and tribal projects, with $46 billion in current loan authority. The Trump administration made only 1 loan under this program, while the Obama administration made tens of billions of dollars of successful investments. Second, Congress should create CEDA to leverage significant private investment in clean energy projects by first, incorporating the reactivated DOE loan programs, second, developing additional financial tools, and third, creating a $10 billion revolving fund. CEDA was actually adopted 51-6 in the House Energy and Commerce Committee in 2009 and was reintroduced in 2020 in a larger federal clean energy standards bill by Representatives DeGette, Huffman, and Peters. CEDA is preferable to a national climate or green bank. Unlike CEDA, a nonprofit green bank would lack access to low-cost and unlimited U.S. Treasury lending, and therefore require regular new congressional appropriations, as well as being subject to oversight by the Comptroller of the Currency. We should seek congressional enactment of CEDA in the first year of the Biden administration. Thanks very much.
I'm Vanessa Tutos. To decarbonize the economy, we must recognize the importance of markets and competition, not as an alternative to policy, but as an efficient means of allocating resources and risk. Competition can provide opportunities for clean energy deployment, as well as system-wide efficiency, smart building, and smart grid technologies through new ideas and expeditious execution. Further, much of the country will not readily accept top-down regulation. Including markets and competition in plans to expand clean energy will facilitate opportunities in conservative and battleground states. As such, we recommend first, replicate where possible the Texas energy-only market, which reliably delivers low-cost renewables with state-of-the-art forecasting and a 5-minute dispatch process. Second, provide easy market access and standard platforms to promote innovative third-party customer services and decarbonization solutions. Third, allow electric utilities to focus on building and managing the grid, while the private sector takes on the investment and risk obligations of deploying generation. Finally, standardize transmission rates to promote competition, remove market entry barriers, and provide lower electricity prices to consumers. Thank you.
This is Véronique with policies to support cities' climate goals. Cities have been pushing the climate policy envelope, but they've also been particularly affected by the COVID pandemic. First off, buildings need to be electrified and decarbonized. That means support for cities building performance standards, and the federal government can actually lead by example by setting efficiency targets for its own buildings. New buildings should be net zero energy, and we need a massive scale up of building retrofits, in particular in underserved communities. Second is transportation. People in cities are into biking now, which is great. The federal government should facilitate and fund bike lanes and bike parkings. School buses and urban fleets of vehicles need to be electrified. Third is the creation of innovation hubs. Change needs to happen fast, but we can target investment at the cities most exposed to technology disruptions. Finally, many cities have acute climate risk from flooding and sea level rise, and increasing resilience spending and mandating actual climate risk disclosure is smart investment.
I'm Natasha Vidangos. Electrification of transportation is a massive opportunity, but we'll only be able to take full advantage of it if we really do well at building out the electric vehicle charging infrastructure. EV charging infrastructure marries some traditional transportation sector questions with those of the power sector and requires some special considerations, from grid impacts to electricity pricing and the need for new business models to tie the whole thing together. Our group recommended 7 different options to try to reduce barriers to deployment, increase penetration, and scale up. They include options like rebate programs to mitigate upfront costs, establishing a sunshot initiative equivalent for EV infrastructure cost reduction, leading by example and installing charging infrastructure at federal properties, leveraging electric utility spending, advancing vehicle-to-grid integration, and incentivizing the build-out of charging infrastructure where vehicles have long dwell times, for high-mileage drivers, and for medium and heavy-duty vehicles.
Hi, I'm Joel Levin. Our group looked at electrifying light-duty vehicles, which of course would have a number of different important benefits, from strengthening U.S. manufacturing leadership to improvements in public health to, of course, deep reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. We identified 5 different policy interventions. First was setting a 50% purchase requirement for all federal procurement of light-duty vehicles. This is something that could be done immediately by an executive order. Second is to reform the federal EV tax credit, which was recently adopted by Congress and could be included in any federal stimulus package. Third is establishing a national clean miles standard for fleets and shared ride vehicles. Fourth is creation of a national ZEV mandate. And lastly, establishing a fee-based system to support EVs, which could also include a cash for clunkers program.
I'm Kelly Fleming. Automated vehicles, or AVs, are developing rapidly, and just last month, Google began the first self-driving taxi service in the Phoenix suburbs. While these vehicles have the potential to greatly improve transportation, without any regulations or policies, They could result in increasing emissions, congestion, worse transportation inequities, and uncoordinated safety standards that are bad for business. To make the U.S. a leader in AV technology, we recommend the Biden-Harris administration do the following. First, utilize the Clean Air Act to require manufactured and commercially operated AVs are zero emission and shared. Second, invest heavily in transit bus automation to extend the benefits of AVs to all. Third, increase funding for AV innovation research through the Departments of Energy, Defense, Transportation, and program offices like ARPA-E. Fourth, direct NHTSA to implement enforceable AV safety standards. Fifth, get ahead of the negative labor impacts by assembling an interagency working group and implement a jobs guarantee program. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Morgan Putnam, and I'm here to speak to you about Next-Gen Highways. Next-Gen Highways are a national infrastructure plan that will co-locate the transport of vehicles, energy, and information. Next-Gen Highways will enable rapid decarbonization of the transportation and electric sectors, and they will additionally create hundreds of thousands of new jobs and address environmental justice through the health benefits associated with transportation electrification. As envisioned, Next-Gen Highways will accomplish three things. First, they will accomplish a national HVDC transmission grid. This is the supergrid that you heard about earlier tonight. Second, they will proactively strengthen the grid along key transportation corridors to support rapid transportation electrification. And third, they will deploy fiber, 5G, and other advanced communications infrastructure to address the digital divide in rural and urban areas. Thanks so much.
Hello, my name's Kevin Vincent. I'm a member of our team, although not the principal author of our paper, which recommends 7 different policies that can be used by the Biden administration to decarbonize medium and heavy-duty trucks. Most of our recommendations require congressional action and increased appropriations from Congress, and those may not be forthcoming if the Republicans continue to control the Senate in the first couple years of the Biden administration. So we want to focus on the 3 recommendations we have, which can be effectuated by executive orders and regulatory action by the Biden administration. The first of those recommendations is to increase the corporate average fuel economy CAFE standards for medium and heavy duty trucks, and to transition those CAFE standards into a zero emission mandate for medium and heavy duty trucks. And we will talk about that policy and some other recommendations.